It would be a whole lot easier for me to just go with the flow and buddy up, network, doing programs like this where I discuss Roman Catholicism and then discuss this issue. That's why our ministry will always be small. It will always be small. Because these folks control the big apologetic conferences and things like that. That's why you've never seen me at one. And you won't. But it is necessary to address these issues if we're going to be, here's that word again, consistent. Because we have discussed Andy Stanley's statements, and people have found them so strange and so odd. How can Andy Stanley say that Christianity was true before there was a Bible? How can you even define Christianity? What's he talking about? How can you say that as long as the resurrection is true, then nothing else really matters? The Bible can have errors in it, and we don't have to worry about what's in the Old Testament. And even right before Christmas, it doesn't really matter how the guy who predicted his own death, burial, and resurrection came into the world. That doesn't really matter as long as that's what happened. And it's this resurrection is it type mentality. And people are like, but what's the significance of the resurrection? What's the meaning of the resurrection? That's all dependent upon Scripture. It's all, the prophetic fulfillment. This is not how the early church viewed these things. Where's he getting all this stuff? He's getting this stuff from scholarship. Now, he may not be as good at expressing it as other people, but you're going to hear Mike Licona say the same things here. And so he's getting this from the William Lane Craig minimalist apologetic approach, mere Christianity camp, Mike Licona realm, Dr. Turek, so on and so forth. This is where they're coming from. And none of them are Reformed. None of this is coming from the Reformed camp at all. It's all coming from that perspective. And as I said, it depends on how you define majorities and minorities and things like that. But this is the majority view of the academy. Well, what's the academy? Well, it's sort of hard to define too, isn't it? But the reality is that to get a place at the table in the academy, there are certain, I believe, compromises you have to make. There are certain doctrines that even if you profess to believe them, you have to do so with a wink and a nod. Inerrancy is one of them. You certainly are going to have very strange looks from the academy if you hold the viewpoints that I have put in print in the books that I have written over the years. That's why I don't even look to have a place there. I believe the function of Christian scholarship is to edify the church, not to edify the academy. That's self-edification. That's not going to work. And so I don't even look for it. And people attack me all the time for that. And it's like, you know what? My perspective, if I am using the best of the gifts God has given to me to do Christian scholarship as ministry, then I will allow my Lord and time to be the judge of those things. You can dislike where I went to school. You can dislike the choices I've made as to where I teach and where I don't teach, what I pursue and what I don't pursue. Fine. I stand before my Lord to be judged by those things, and I believe that fundamentally, in the long run, it is the service you do to the church that is going to really determine the eternal value of the things that you've done. So take that or leave it. So why address Mike Licona? Because Mike Licona says in this interview the very things that Andy Stanley said, but in the context of the Evangelical Theological Society. And you say, well, you ever been to ETS? Yeah, once. Presented a paper there on Greg Stafford. It was a really disheartening experience. Well, it is interesting that Skyman's in channel. Is he still there? Let me look here. Yeah, Skyman's still there. Skyman was at ETS the same year I was. Was that 98? I think it was 1998, if I recall correctly. And I had two really positive experiences there. One of them was standing at the NET table discussing the Carmen Christi with Dan Wallace for about an hour. And neither one of us had, we didn't even have to look at the text. We both had it memorized. We were discussing it in Greek. It was fun. It was grand because we disagree on a particular element of the understanding of the Carmen Christi. And I eventually wrote a article for the CRI Journal where I represented Dan's position and attempted to do so very accurately. Sent him the stuff to make sure that I was representing him accurately in my comments. The other positive experience was with Skyman. And we came in late to one of the plenary sessions. And Dr. Roger Nicole was speaking. Well, no, he wasn't speaking. They had a panel. And I think this was like the 50th anniversary year of the founding of ETS, if I recall correctly. And right as Skyman and I sat down toward the back, this woman gets up because they were asking questions, this panel. They were all founding members of ETS. And this woman gets up and says, why did you put the Bible alone in the statement of faith? And Dr. Nicole, already elderly at that time, sort of with the hunch of age, struggles a little bit to get out of his chair and sort of shuffles up to the podium and just leans over, and all he said was, because we didn't want any Roman Catholics in the group. And then he shuffles back to his seat. And there are two people in the audience. Yeah, all right. And it's me and Skyman. And everybody's turning around and looking at us. Because they're scandalized by it, you know, and we're like, yeah, go, yes. They looked at us like we had three heads, like we were just. Yeah, that's one I will never. Yes. I know he's laughing too. I will never forget that. That was so much fun. I appreciate that, David. That was. I'm glad you remember that too, because that was awesome. But to be honest with you, other than that, my experience at ETS was just so disappointing, because what I did not see was an attitude of a servant's heart toward the church. What I saw, which I've seen way too many times, was the attitude, we are the enlightened scholars, the church of the benighted people, we will guide you into truth. I don't see a position of Christian scholar in the New Testament. That's not, you know, again, if you do not use your scholarship as a servant of the church, why are you doing it? What is it going to matter in eternity? What's it going to matter? Makes you wonder.